Welcome to another edition of Advancio Talks. We welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a special guest, my friend Nick Brierly from
currently the Cayman Islands.
The Cayman Islands. And I wanted you to say that because this guy lives in a beautiful, beautiful place. So we're recording out here from ITC Connect in Las Vegas. Nick, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, about myself. So I've ended up in the Cayman Islands somehow. I started in
I
the
feel
UK.
for you, my friend.
I was telling just Roxette earlier. I started off my career actually started in the Royal Navy. So I was in the Royal Navy for a while, and then left that because I wanted to do something a little bit more entrepreneurial. Ended up in Deloitte. Moved from Deloitte UK to Deloitte Cayman Islands. That's how I got there. And then subsequently left there, worked in insurance, and then about 3 years ago co-founded an insurance company, which with the ambition to go across the Caribbean and bring digital insurance to the Caribbean.
That's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about this company that you created.
Yeah, so it's called Indigo, and we launched it. Well, it launched in the Bahamas about 2 years ago. Our second stop has been Cayman, so that's actually our second country we've expanded into, and that launched in March of this year. And then we're starting to consider where stop number 3 will be. So it's very much trying to make insurance as efficient as possible by selling it digitally online, which is a new thing for the Caribbean in general.
I gotta tell you, you have a very cool name. Indigo is really, really catchy.
Well, there's a story there. So originally it was going to be Mint, and we were about to launch Mint, and then in the Bahamas there was I think it was an investment brokerage just got in trouble with the SEC, and turns out they were called Mint, and we said, well, let's think about this. So we ended up changing to Indigo.
Good call.
Yeah.
You didn't want to have the authorities on your back for the wrong reason.
We didn't want any association. Yeah.
Oh, so, I mean, obviously, direct to consumer insurance has been around in the U.S. in particular for a long time. What is it that you've learned from that experience that you're trying to apply in the Caribbean, knowing that it's a different environment over there?
Yeah, it is. I mean, my personal experience of it is more from the UK and Europe. So selling online, direct to consumer, I'm fairly familiar with. In fact, I think in the UK you'd struggle to go to like an insurance shop, a physical premise. I just don't know where you go. So everything's been online for a while there. But for us, I think people either go direct because they think you can make more profit by cutting out the intermediary. For us, it's always been we can own that customer experience from start to finish, and we've always been quite uncomfortable in selling through an intermediary where we can't control that experience. So for us, as much around the insurance products and the claim cycle, it's around measuring the customer experience. So measuring response times, customer satisfaction, all that sort of stuff's really important to us. So that's really the reason we're direct.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because I mean, for a while now, the buzz has always been, do we go direct, do we stay through our distribution channels for the well-established carriers? I think the advantage Indigo had is that you started from a blank slate. So you actually didn't have to deal with that dilemma. You're not pissing anybody off by going direct, right?
Exactly. And I see it, I see it all the time. Like these guys who obviously grew quickly and have got a big intermediary network and then go, oh, now we want to go direct. It's like, you've got to be very careful how you do that. So you're right. Yeah, it's a big advantage of us is starting fresh.
So let's talk a little bit about technology. I mean, obviously you're a technology first company. You're a technology company that happens to sell insurance in a sense. From legacy perspective, I mean, insurance is a very we're in the business of avoiding risk, so we're in the business of not fixing what's not broken. And how have you seen the technology adoption change over the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years in the insurance space?
Yeah, I think what's happened is, or I've seen it a number of times, where you've had carriers with, let's call them legacy systems, systems from 20 odd years ago, make a few acquisitions, so they've got a few more systems in there, and then it becomes quite difficult. You end up bolting on these little side things and before you know it, you've got this very complex ecosystem of technology, and you inject a little bit of technology to deal with, let's say, some commercial auto, and then you want to add on the homeowners bit, and then before you know it, you've got a very complex ecosystem. So for us, we ended up investing quite a lot in our core system that we knew was going to be, as much as we can do, sort of future-proof, but with like an open API network, and that allows us to build in I suppose a more considered way, so that we don't run into that. Hopefully, we don't run into that issue in 5 or 10 years when you start talking about system replacements and stuff. Because the real cost of system replacements is it becomes your focus, when it should be about customer experience, or it should be about new products, but instead you go through this 2-year mega IT project which absorbs everyone's concentration, and it just slows you down.
That's absolutely true. We've seen a lot of IT projects in the insurance space fail because of that. It slows you down to a point where you don't know whether it's worth the effort of doing.
Yeah.
And many carriers have decided to just start from a clean slate and running almost a parallel organization to the one they have, just because trying to fix what you have is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So obviously the buzzword nowadays is AI.
Yep. So I see here.
This whole conference is about AI.
Yeah.
I mean, we're advancio.com. Maybe we should change it, advancio.ai.
Good way to double your valuation.
That's right. You never know. We're going to have more people stopping by. So AI is an interesting technology. I mean, I've been following AI for a while. I mean, historically, AI started in the 60s, but really came to life in the 90s with machine learning, and we started seeing it more in predictive analytics and data modeling. What changed today about AI that, at least what I feel, is that there's probably a higher adoption rate. There's more willingness to talk AI. It kind of reminds me of the cloud revolution a bit. What has changed that made AI so empowering over the conversations?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good question. I think from my point of view, at least, a lot of the AI solutions that I'm seeing here, the AI concepts, are as a result of something else. So it might be, high enough resolution satellite imagery that now it works with AI to become much more powerful. And so I think it's probably the things around AI that are coming up as well that's allowing AI. But I also think most of these things, 5 years ago, if you wanted to really invest in AI, you're probably going to have to build out something internally, right? And that becomes very expensive and daunting. Whereas now, and we're not quite there yet, I suspect, but I imagine in 5 years you'll be able to, add a plugin to have that AI feature in whatever it is, if it's on some sort of claim software, or if it's your customer communications channels or whatever. And so I think when you get to that point where it's commoditized almost, that's when I think you're going to see it everywhere. But it feels like we're almost there. Like you said, there's a lot of AI booths around here. So.
I think you hit it right on. I think the fact that it's become affordable to play with AI, it really invited a lot of startups to kind of start toying around and trying to find solutions to problems that have been here forever. Traditionally, AI is mainly it's been about automation, right? Well, machine learning initially it was mainly about understanding the product and for product performance, and then it became about fraud detection and building the good underwriting. Today, I feel like you're seeing it move one step ahead into assistance. It's like having your personal business assistant, in a sense, where it augments your ability to do your work. It doesn't necessarily replace it. But there's still a catch there. What we see is that cognitive AI has gotten really good. But the large language models, the understanding of documents and context in a way that you're able to let the computer underwrite on its own, aside from a rule engine, which we know is good only for a certain point, that seems to be not as growing as fast as some people might or might not want it. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think wherever the deep customization, it's going to be slower, right? And I think that's the comes back to that sort of cost issue. My experience of it and how I've seen it, we use Zendesk for our customer communications. And I remember probably 5 years ago, they were starting to talk about an AI chatbot, and there was something you could, which would suggest responses to customer things, right? But it was very new, and I think let's say it was 50 grand they wanted, just to build it out, and then it was a very expensive monthly fee. Now I think you can do it, and it's like 10 cents a conversation or 10 cents per response or something. So that's what I mean. Like, you can get to it where it's much easier to consume these sort of AI plugins. So that's what I suspect we'll get to over the next few years.
Well, actually, you're absolutely right. Talking about customer experience, we see a lot of new technology geared towards that. Right? Whereas before, technology was mainly about reducing loss. It was mainly about detecting fraud. It was mainly about maybe helping the underwriter do their job faster, some automation. Today, to your point, we're seeing a lot more customer-focused innovation that's about the journey. It's about the insights of that customer. What changed?
I guess it's one of the frontiers of competition, and whereas it might have been price or claim service in the past, I think it's overall customer experience now, and I think consumers are expecting a good experience. Like a small example at Indigo is, our competitors will offer payment plans, but they're very nervous about you not paying and then cancelling you in time and running out of equity. So they'll come up with these fairly convoluted 30% down and then 8 monthly installments or whatever. I just think people now go, no, how much is it per month? Like subscription based, the Netflix type model. So we'll quote you, and it'll be $500 or it'll be $50 a month. And I don't think people want that percentage down and 6 months. Like, it's just they're used to subscription plans. So there's a little bit of credit risk there, but we need to take that to be able to offer a product that the consumer wants and expects. So just little things like that, and I think that's where it's around the fringes, but overall it's becoming a far more consumable product.
So Nick, I really love what you're doing at Indigo. Like I mean, you get a fresh canvas and you're drawing whatever you want, right? And to your point, you're actually taking that customer experience as a core consideration when you're actually developing your product in general, whether it's the IT side or the insurance side. What's missing in the larger, like how can larger, well-established organization serve their client as a startup? Because we hear that a lot. Like, we're going to disrupt from within. We're going, some go to the extent of spinning off subsidiaries and having them run parallel, but oftentimes they find themselves poking into their business and trying to bring them back to the legacy model. What should, as a CEO of a large company, let's say, if I were the CEO of a large company, I'm not going to name names, and we know competition is healthy, even for fresh companies such as yourself, you really want good competition because that forces you to get better, right? And so what could those big box names do to kind of think fresh and think startup?
Man, I think it's tough, right? I've worked in large organisations. I've worked in Deloitte. I've worked in the military, actually, Royal Navy. So I sort of understand how these things can work. Like, it's tough, and I think for me, it all comes down to culture and organisational culture, and keeping it as flat as possible within reason. Like, obviously, there's got approval levels, but we try very hard to keep it flat as we grow. And then, it's a cliche, but sort of think like a startup. And I think what we try to do is, each level of our staff is get them to think as if it's like their own business. Would you spend this money? Like, how should we make it right with this customer if we mess up? Or, my wife used to work at the Ritz-Carlton. She was in HR. And one of the things they do is empower every member of staff to, I think they've got something like a $1,000 budget, but they can spend in an instant to make something right for a customer. So, if there's some mess up, they can go, let me throw a free meal, let me wipe the room tonight, charge off or whatever. And that allows the frontline staff to be empowered to change your experience. Whereas a lot of organisations will be like, well, if you want to give someone a $25 discount, you need to get an approval. And that might take 48 hours to get back. So you sort of lose you lose the benefit of that gesture if it takes so long and goes through approval level. So yeah, that's a couple of things we do, but I'm not pretending I'm going to solve the world's problems.
It's actually a very good point. Actually, we had a podcast about organizational culture a few months ago, and you hit it right on. It's very important to enable the employees to actually be able to make decisions and trusting your workforce to be able to make decisions that are in line with the company vision. And if the vision is customer centric, that's definitely going to show in the way your workforce is going to handle it.
Yeah. So my partner and the CEO of Indigo, Brian, he cringes whenever he hears a staff member go, "Let me check with my manager or my boss," and he hates it. And so what he'll say is, "No, you've got to empower yourself to, like the customer feels like you're not empowered to help me as soon as you say, 'Let me check with my manager.' So it needs to be, if you need to check 5 minutes, let me check with my colleague. Let me discuss it and I'll get back to you." Rather than, demean yourself by making yourself sound small.
That's a very good answer. Oh, Nick, this was fascinating. Fortunately, we're running out of time. What can you tell us? Last words of wisdom, golden nuggets for the attendees here and for our audience, who's actually probably most of them probably are hearing about insurance and insurance tech for the first time, since we're mainly a tech-focused podcast.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it's fascinating. The reason I come here all the way from Cayman, partly because I like playing blackjack, but secondly because it gives me an insight into how technology is likely to be used in the insurance space over the next few years. And you see all the AI booths, especially around fraud detection and underwriting. Like, that's clearly how it's going to evolve over the next few years. And whilst we might not be there yet, it gives us a sort of a heads up about where we should be looking to invest in, to deploy, to hire people in. So that's why I love about this conference. It's like a small look into the future.
I like that. A little crystal ball, but a ball where you dance, actually, not a ball. Oh, Nick, it was a pleasure having you over. It was a great conversation. I'd love to have you over again and tell us more about Indigo like a couple of years from now and see where you guys got. We're rooting for you, man. We're rooting for you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. All right, well, thank you all for being here. Please, as usual, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you all next time.